Hello there and welcome to the CRUD series. In this video, we're going to be building the create and the read feature. Let's get started. The first thing is we need two data variables. So let's go to the variables. Let's go to the data variables. And from here, you can create the data variables. The first variable we're going to create is to create the record. So let's go ahead and click on the plus sign, and when you do that, you will see that it's automatically showing you the data entities available. In our case, we only have one entity, so I'm going to choose it. Now it shows you three different options. Either this could be a collection of data records, or a single data record, or a new data record. We are going to create this to create a new record. So I'm going to choose new data record, and it's definitely helpful to give it a proper name. Based on our design, this is called CR, and let's go ahead and save it. That's it. We need another data variable to take care of reading the records, which is basically a collection of records. So let's go ahead and add another data variable, and this is also going to be bound to the customer entity, and this time it's going to be a collection of records, so I'm going to leave that selection. And keep in mind that you can also program a filter condition, you can also order the values, you can also introduce pagination. We're going to discuss this a little bit later. Let's go ahead and give it a name. So based on a design, it's going to be GR, and let's go ahead and save this. Now you might be wondering, I didn't see the schema of the customer entity in these variables. I still cannot see it. That's a good question, and that's a good point. We'll take care of that right now. Let's go back to view, and now we have to bind the name input text and the email input text box to the create data variable. So when actually the end user clicks on the customer, create customer, we can use this information to pass it to the local storage. So let's go to the input field 1. I have given it a name just for the design purposes. And the value, you can see it has no value. It's not connected to any value. So let's click on the value. Let's click on the data and variables. And now you're going to choose which one? We're going to choose the data variable because that's what we created. Data variable, as you can see, it's showing you an option CR, and from the CR you can see that it's showing you two elements. So this is basically the same schema of your customer entity. So it's going to be name for this specific one, so I'm going to choose name and save. So now you can see that the input field name is bound to the cr.name field, and which is eventually going to be connected to the customer entity. Let's go to the next input field. I've given it a name just for design purposes as of now. I see that the value is not connected, so let's go ahead and connect it. Data and variables, data variable, and I'm going to choose the same data variable, and I'm only going to choose a different element from the schema. So email this time. So keep in mind that though we have connected the data variable to the input name and email, and the data variable is borrowing the schema from the customer entity, it still is not connected. So we have to use a flow logic to connect them. That's the next step. So let's take care of the button. So you can give it whatever name you like. So let's go ahead and fix the spelling there. So the record has to be created when the end user clicks on create customer. So this is where the name and email values are sent to the local storage. So let's click on the create customer and open the show logic. So as you can see, by default, the event is provided for you with the component tab. And of course, as you know, there are various events you can use. In this case, we need component tab. And from the flow logic canvas or logic canvas and the data category, you can see that we have an option called create record, and this is what is actually going to create the record. Let's go ahead and connect it. All right, there you go. Now let's click on the data create record, and now we have to program this function or this component. So first thing is to choose the resource. As you can see, the resource is already bound to customer entity, and this is the only entity available, so that's why it's directly binding to customer. If you had multiple entities, then you would choose the entity. Next is to bind the elements of the entity, right? So let's click on the custom object, and as you can see, these are the two elements of the customer entity schema, and you have to now bind it to some value from the UI or the user input in this case. So let's click on the ABC. Let's click on the data variables. Let's click on the data variable, and let's click on the CR. And now you can see that that value is actually going to come from this specific data variable. So I'm going to say name for name, and then email is going to be the same thing, data and variables, data variable, same data variable but different element, save. And that's it. Everything looks good. So what has happened quickly is the data variable CR is holding the values for whatever the customer has entered for name and email. And then by using the create function, we are passing those values to the local storage. All right, great. Perfect. Let's go and save this real quick. So next is the read function from the CRUD list. So we already have a list item, and this is inside the scroll view. So let's click on the list item, and here you can see you have the repeat with function. So let's click on that. Let's go to data variables. Let's go to data variable, and now you choose the GR, which is the get records, and save it. Remember, we created this specific data variable as a type collection, so this is going to get a list of values for us. And as you can see, a ghost trail. Now what we need to do is we need to program the primary label as per the design, as you can see. And when you have the repeat enabled, you have this new option called data item and repeat. So let's click on that. Let's go to current, and then let's go to the name, save it, and then the secondary label is actually gonna be email. So let's go and choose email. All right, perfect. So this is all good. So we have created the functionality to create a record with the name and email value, and also to display the record immediately. Now let's test it. So let's punch in a name. Let's say the name is Vikram, and the email is vik@email.com. And I'm going to click on the create customer now. So let's go ahead and create it. And there you go. It has created, and it's displaying the name and the email in the list box. Okay, let's go ahead and create another one. So I'm going to say, second one is going to be Jess, and the email, I'm only going to change the first part, and let's call it Jess with a single S, and then at email.com. So I'm going to now say create customer. Alright, there you go. It's created the customer, it's reading the customer list, and it's displaying it to you on the home page. It's pretty neat, pretty neat. In the next video, we're going to see something very interesting. So when the user clicks on a specific customer item, it has to take the user to a different page, and also the information has to be carried from the home page to the details page, and also that information has to be displayed in a component. Great. So we're going to see that in the next video. I'll see you there.